Talks Episodes of Horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and today we're talking about the movie The Keep, of course, based on the novel by F. Paul Wilson. So, how long had it been since you had seen the movie?
Well, after watching it, I do remember watching it when I was a kid. So, um, 30 years maybe.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably been at least 10 years, if not more, since I had seen it last. And it was, 80s movie. It was from 1983.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely is 80s.
yeah, and you could definitely feel it. I really enjoyed the soundtrack, though.
Oh, good. So basically we are completely and totally opposite on everything. So that's going to be fun, just like you said.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's like the best soundtrack ever, but it was like, it brought me back because it's totally an 80s vibe to the music. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's like, Oscar award winning or anything like that, but it was kind of cool. It was your typical horror soundtrack from the 80s. I mean, I think most of the movies from back then had a similar sound to their
Yeah.
scores.
Yeah. I do agree. It was a cool soundtrack. I liked the music. I just thought it completely had nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
was so modern that it takes you out of the period.
yeah.
And I mean that music with a movie like The Thing or um, even like an aliens based
Hmm.
movie would have been perfect.
Yeah.
It made no sense in this movie. I can see myself listening to the score separately, but as I was watching the movie, I kept thinking this doesn't fit. Like when they're trying to pry the cross off of the wall,
Hmm.
it should have been like a classical, score almost. And then we
Yeah.
had this like techno pop,
Yeah.
just electronic music, and I thought it just doesn't. It stood out shocking. I was surprised at how much it stood out, but I also understand it was a 1983 movie, and
Yeah.
everything in the first couple years of the 80s, they all had that kind of vibe to it. You rarely got a score that
Yeah.
fit. So
I think it was Keep soundtrack. I think it was Tangerine Dream.
yeah, that was the name. Yeah, but that's probably some sort of you know
Yeah,
rock band from that
Tangerine
time period.
Dream. The name was familiar to me, but I can't say that it was a group that I listened to. Um so yeah, that was pretty cool. No, it was their 58th album,
Wow.
Tangerine Dream's 58th album. So that's pretty cool. Huh.
Yeah, and like I said, isolated, it's good. But
Yeah.
just with the movie, it didn't make any sense, and it felt like one of those things. I ordered the Blu-ray, and it took me forever to find somebody who had a Blu-ray copy of this thing. So I ordered it because I wanted to watch all the special features to kind of get an idea of how much control man had with the choices. Because it feels like this is very early in his career. I think this is like maybe the second movie he directed,
Yeah.
and I don't think he had any control. And some of the decisions made feels like something that maybe a whole bunch of test screenings would have caused, or
Yeah.
maybe uh, one know-it-all up the producer forcing their hand. Because there are a couple times where I thought, nah, this isn't very good.
Hmm. So interestingly enough, um, Michael Mann, the director, renounced Paramount's version of the Keep because he says it desecrated the vision he had created.
Well, there you go. That tells you. Okay, so then now
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
feel like that works because
Yeah.
I would love to see a director's cut or see what they left on the cutting room floor because there were a few times where it felt like they were quickly jumping to whatever it is that they were trying to give us.
Yeah. Yeah. I also saw something too in my I was just looking through Google yesterday that they didn't have any idea to how to handle the creature, how to portray Radu Molazar. Um, in the movie. So that's why it's different from what the actual creature is described as in the book. Because in the book he's described as kind of more humanish, you
Yeah, I
know?
pictured one of the guys from What They Do in Shadows,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
kind of like that is how he should have been. And then I get that he was building in the book. He's building up from nothing or in essence into the physical form. You know, he has to
Yeah.
build his strength up. So I understood if that they're saying they had trouble with it. But in the movie, we have two different monsters. Really, we have that the um, the cloud, the
Yep.
sense of a monster,
Hmm.
and then we have the actual physical. Which this is probably why I thought the whole book was about a golem because that thing kind of looks like a giant golem
It
with
does. It
with
does. It's
glowing red
very
eyes.
it looks stone like lava to me. It always looked like a creature made out of lava because you have like the
Which
black and
yeah,
then the red. So yeah, it
but it could
totally
have been
does.
like made out of like the keep, quote unquote. You know, like
Yeah.
a building, like like the same structure. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it is completely opposite of the book because in the book we've got this very slow buildup of the monster slowly killing them, but killing them in a physical way, in a manner that
Yes.
could be easily attributed to the village.
Yeah.
In the movie, it's blowing people's heads up. It's
Yes.
it's everything it does is like immediately you know this is not somebody
Not
in the village.
yeah, yeah, like sucking their
And I
essence out of their eyes and stuff.
and
Uh,
even if they just did that, then you're like, okay, that's cool. Then you got like a some sort of like husk left behind. But
yeah.
then they would explode. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, you can't and I think the first time that happens, you're out of the keep. I
Yeah.
don't care who you are, you're out of there. So I
Yeah.
that's the only thing I didn't like that aspect either. They made the kill, but I get it because they're trying to get your attention.
Hmm. Yeah.
They're trying to be, spectacular. But again, it does feel like somebody went over the director's head and said, "Okay, we're going to do," because they don't. It doesn't match. The whole movie's got this weird, out of step feel,
Yeah.
and it's got this amazing cast of actors that were probably nobodies at the time, but now we
Hmm.
look at them and we're like, "Oh my god, how did you score all these great actors?"
Magneto
And
was in it. Like
yeah, and it's funny because you really don't see him in a lot of stuff. He was in that, and he was in this HBO movie in the early '80s that was about it was about doctors and AIDS trying to figure out, kind of I don't want to say the history of AIDS, but it was kind of this the story where they took a look at how AIDS was affecting the gay community and the doctors that were going about their business trying to the ones that were trying to help and then the ones that were trying to take advantage of it. And it's like
yeah.
in the mid '80s or so. I remember him being in something in that, but until X-Men, you really don't see him in a ton of stuff, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he's in everything. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely different from the book, of course. The creature um the where they where you first meet Theodore Kuza and her name is Eva in the movie and not Magda. And I'm like, what's wrong with Magda? Like
yeah, I don't
that's
understand because it wouldn't have conflicted with any of the other names. So
yeah. They're in some kind of like I don't want to say
concentration camp,
yeah, that's what the feeling that I got, but they seem almost too happy. Like they're just sitting
right?
there eating snacks with the
It feels
gypsy
like you know what it felt like. It felt like the pre, it was like the this is this
processing, the
the yeah
pre-processing.
processing, and then we're gonna take you to the thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't quite upset enough to be in a full
Right. They're like
concentration
just
camp.
having snacks. Like,
Yeah,
okay. First of all, they wouldn't have snacks.
yeah.
You
And I
know?
also thought it was weird they tried to shoehorn the music in with the conversation with the gypsy lady, and
Yeah,
then never mention music again.
right. And that was
So
a
it's like,
big part of Magda. That was
yeah,
like
and I
a
would have loved to have seen her play at a
yep.
different point. I give her an opportunity to expand her character a little bit. I understand there's a time crunch, but
Yeah.
there was we watched a boat sailing across water forever. They could have cut that. That's not necessary, and then put in some of her playing music or some of the other things. I thought
Yeah.
I didn't even understand the reason they could have showed him get on a boat and get off a boat and we're done, and they decided to film which felt like forever. Him
Yeah.
crossing the water.
I mean, if they were going to add in the part of where Glenn Glaken kills the captain of the boat that he rents because the captain's going to rob him or something,
Yeah, that would have been great.
you know, to see more of his journey, because his journey just wasn't getting on a boat and going there. He got on a boat and then he had to get off a boat and get another boat, you
Yeah,
know?
and it looked like one of those things where they cut to the in the cartoons, they cut to the map and they took the dotted lines. That's
Yeah.
basically what we got, but we just watched a boat go across. And
Yeah.
they could have done so much more. I also didn't like the fact that they turned Glenn into this inhuman,
Hmm.
almost. I mean, I don't want to say. I mean, I guess you could almost say autistic if we were looking at it in today's view. But back then,
Yeah.
I don't know what. But he, I mean, he's so he's not. Nothing about him comes across as human. And I
Yeah.
think in the book, everything about him was human. I mean, his
Exactly. And
humanity he was holding on to,
yeah, he had those weird eyes, which we'll see in the pictures, and the green blood.
yeah,
There was
which
no
is
mention
fine.
of,
I guess if they want to do that, but oh yeah, 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 yeah. No mention of it in the movie, right? Is that what you're
or in
saying?
the book. Yeah,
In the
like they
book,
didn't
yeah,
say he had green blood. They just said blood. So,
yeah. So they turn him into this weird creature, but they don't give us any backstory. So then we just think, I don't. We don't even know what to think. It's just really
yeah,
rushed.
yeah.
So
And
yeah, when
like
they
you
shot
said,
him with the machine gun, they got the green
yeah,
blood. That's
yeah, like you said, it's a movie, so they're in they got only so much time unless they want to turn it into like a, 4-hour movie. Um,
which we
so
know
you
they
can,
won't do because it is the early '80s. You barely got movies like that.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it was just a little rushed, and like the difference between how Kuza and Eva got to the keep. In the book, it was they heard about this person who knew about the keep, so they were going to bring him. But in the movie, it turned out to be the priest told the Nazis about them because he wanted to bring them to the keep so they could escape.
Right, and that lets me know that they probably weren't in the concentration camp or about to be in the concentration camp, and I think that's cool that they incorporated this. The movie is more heavily religious than the book is,
Yeah,
even though we see some stuff. There are some religious overtones because of the Jewish faith and stuff in the book. The movie's really focused on the priest and even the Jews and everything, and how more religion is affecting everything.
yeah, yeah. And let's talk about Glaken's weapon in the movie.
Wasn't
It
it like a
was
big tube, right?
it was like I thought apple cannon. I'm like he's gonna start shooting apples out of that. It
Yeah,
was like
it did
a
not look like a sword at all, did it?
no, and it like transformed. Like when he put the hilt on, it like started doing all these things, and so it ended up being like just a staff with a light at the end of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they couldn't have made a sword. Like that would have
A
been
sword would have
way,
been easier. They wouldn't have had to do
yeah,
any special effects or anything. It didn't make any,
yeah.
yeah, they
So
were
I'm like,
trying too hard.
all right, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not shitting on the movie because the movie was entertaining, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, I can do that. I will do that. I will shit on the movie because, but yeah, no, I get it though. It definitely is a slice. It has that feel of the '80s. It's
Hmm.
just that man is such an incredible director, and to see this movie and then think there's no way that he. I mean, even as a young director, he wouldn't have made some of the choices. I feel. So I'm glad you read that thing at the very beginning where it says that he's upset with it too. I'm
Yeah,
excited now to get the Blu-ray. I ordered it on Blu-ray because I wanted to see the special features to kind of fill in some of the blanks. But of course, it's not here yet because I took forever to find a place that would even sell it.
yeah,
I guess it's out of print, and so I ended up watching it on Pluto, streaming it, and so I would love. I'm interested. I'm excited to get the Blu-ray now so I can see the special features to kind of connect the dots, and
yeah.
maybe it'll give me a new appreciation of the movie. I at the end of the day, it's filled with some amazing actors.
Hmm.
Some of them give really good performances, but a lot of it they don't have enough time to give us anything. It
Yeah,
everything is so rushed in the movie, which
yeah,
falls in line with an '80s horror movie. They don't get. They're there to make money. They're not there to
yeah. And
wow us with anything.
yeah, and I couldn't quite like the ending in the book. Glaken's still alive. In the movie, he gets sucked into the wall. Like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
Yeah. But I think that fits because
Mm,
they made him so inhuman.
hmm.
He's almost a golem himself.
Yeah,
So maybe and so he doesn't. There's no connection. I thought and that's why it doesn't make sense. The sex scene doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for these two characters to have connected in any way meaningful. If you at least would have had her playing the music, they could have had some sort of awkward connection over that. But it's
right.
like, in true '80s fashion, boy meets girl, they have sex immediately, and then we go on with the story, and it doesn't even really register. It's just a way for them to have that in there.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, oh, like some they were, yeah, it was just very out of place. And of course, they do have sex in the book, but it's not like the
But it's a yeah
focus.
build up. And not only
Yeah,
that, she's like completely emotionally um, and intellectually connected to him. It makes sense that she's this character that has no desire to be with a man, doesn't care about anything, then meets him, and then everything is basically flipped on its head. It made sense.
yeah,
Especially because they're facing their extinction or the end of the whatever they think the end of the world, however they want to word it. So it made sense in the movie. It really was like, oh, a mandatory sex scene, from the early '80s, anything like that.
yeah.
Probably the only way they would have got an R rating, if I had to guess. That's another thing. You want your horror movies to have R ratings to
Hmm.
get people in the theater because it could be PG, right?
Yeah,
If you didn't have that sex scene, it definitely is PG. I'm assuming it's R, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was PG. '80s were
yeah,
wild. You could get away
yeah.
with a lot of
Let's
stuff.
let's see. What was the rating on that? Let me look that up.
I think the movie poster is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love the movie poster. It's one of those iconic things that you immediately know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Let's see. Can
Well,
I
of
see
course,
what
because
is?
the stupid building says the keep on it. But I mean, I think it's a really cool
Yeah. Let's see.
movie
Does
poster. That would have been a
IMDb?
perfect book cover too.
Yeah. Yeah. It is rated R.
Yeah, so I think the sex scene because there's no cussing, the violence is there's violence,
Minimal.
but it's not bloody.
Yeah.
And I do remember that used to be I mean, I know Poltergeist is PG, but in the old days, your horror movies almost were always R rated.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they want everything to be PG-13 so they can get the kids to go.
Hmm. Yep. And I like seeing that, F. Paul Wilson is listed as one of the writers. I wasn't able to find anything online about what he thinks about the movie. Um,
Yeah, I'd like to know, but I will tell you, he's probably happy because he got paid. But
yeah.
and that's the best way to look at it for most of these people. They
Yeah.
hey, it was early in his career probably, and it was one of his first books, and they made a movie, and that's pretty cool. Now, there may be a reason why we don't have any other F. Paul Wilson movies. Maybe that's the way he tells us what he thinks.
Yeah.
But
Maybe. Yeah, because
I
there's sequels to this, to the
yeah,
Keep, the book. Um, so
but I think they fall in line with the way the books monsters and characters were, and they wouldn't fall in line as well with the way the movie handled it. One thing
yeah.
I do like is that I mean, honestly, they've made changes, but it is the same story arc
Yeah.
for the most part. So that's kind of nice that they didn't completely just take the name and then throw everything out.
Yeah.
Um,
Make it a whole different story.
like the Howling.
Yeah. Yep. So here we have Ian McKellen, um, before he was cured and after he was cured.
And I thought that
Um,
was interesting that they kept that storyline in too, because I mean that's an interesting storyline. And what's funny is that he actually kind of fits the part. It's hard to believe that 20 years before he was old, Magneto and Gandalf and stuff, that he actually kind of could pull off old. You know what I
yeah.
mean? He can't be
But
that old. He must be in his 40s,
yeah,
maybe.
maybe. But he didn't even really look that old, even when he was before he
Yeah,
was cured. And I think that they could have found somebody different to play the father, because especially after he was cured, because there's no mention in the book that he looks younger. he was just cured. But in the movie, he kind of looks younger, so I
Yeah.
don't know if that's what they intended him to do, is to look younger. But it was very awkward because he looked the same age as Ava, his daughter. And in the scene where she's like kneeling in front of his wheelchair and like when she's seeing him cured for the first time, I thought they were going to kiss. It just had that
Hmm.
vibe, and he was just like looking at her weird like that, and I was like, what's going on? Like, I'm
Yeah. Now that
like,
is
what?
something they did pretty well in the movie, though, is once the monster's really going around, everybody starts to have those the influence of the evil starting to
Mhm.
take over everybody's character. So maybe that was what that vibe was kind of supposed to represent, was it that they
Yeah.
were starting to get that weird evil overwhelming.
Yeah, and that's another one of the other things I would have liked to see more is in the book you got like the guy who stabs his wife. She's nagging
Yeah.
at him and then he stabs her and then she goes to the inn and they won't help her because they're like, "Oh, that's not our problem. Get out of here." You know? Um
Yeah, we didn't even really see the innkeeper but for like a second. He's a big player in the book,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
what he does.
But yeah, I'm really bad with actors. Like I can see a movie and unless it's like somebody I know really well, um I won't realize that they were in a movie like 20 years ago, 30 years ago that I had seen. Um, so I didn't even know this was Ian McKellen. He doesn't even look anything like Ian McKellen that I know because I know him
Yeah,
from Magneto, you know. That
yeah, for
that's
sure.
that so but yeah, I just when I was watching it, I just thought they could have maybe gotten somebody else to play Dr. Kuza, somebody to be older than the daughter, which was Amy Watson, right? Yeah, who played Magda. Um,
They probably thought his gray hair would be enough
right? Yeah,
to throw you off, but he carries off the he does look pretty good when he's healed, so he does look
yeah,
good.
yeah,
She actually kind of looks like the character the way they described her. You
yeah,
know, um,
yeah.
I don't
She
want to
wasn't.
sound.
Go
Are you
ahead.
gonna say what I'm thinking? You go ahead and say what you're about to say, and I'll see if it.
Well, I was just gonna say she didn't have the same vibe as she did in the book because in the book she's very demure. She wears the scarf over her hair. Her clothes are not what I'll call stylish.
Mhm.
Um, so she was very fashionable in the movie. Um, she wasn't as demure as she was in the book, where she was just like, I'm just here to take, my father. I'm just taking care of my father.
Yeah,
Um, so So what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say she's not hot enough to be the girl from the book because they made it sound like she was just like this complete, like so attractive that all these men were, even though she was totally frumped up, all the
Yeah,
men were attracted to her and stuff, and it wasn't just that she was a woman. She doesn't
yeah,
have that vibe. She doesn't have that
yeah,
um, because she leaned into her sexuality in the movie.
yeah.
In the book, she doesn't, and so it's that what's that the Disney movie or the coming of age high school movie where the girl's not attractive, but then they take her glasses off, like they joke about, it, and then
And
all of
her
a sudden she's the hottest.
braces. Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
and then she's a hot. That kind of vibe is what you're looking for with this
yeah,
character.
yeah.
And
Maybe
you're right.
that's.
She definitely didn't play to the "I'm here for my dad" kind of situation. She was more. I want to say bossy, but she did come across
Mm,
as a little more bossy about stuff. And,
more
um,
forceful, more, yeah,
yeah,
more dominant. And maybe that's why they gave her more stylish clothes because she wasn't as beautiful, attractive as Magda was in the book. Um,
yeah.
so
I guess in the book it felt like she was so beautiful that she didn't even try to be beautiful, and yet she was still the most beautiful thing. And in the movie, you could tell that they had gone out of their way to make her
yeah,
attractive and whatever. So,
yeah,
and that kind of makes sense because we're also dealing with a movie where we're not allowed to get a whole bunch of um, backstory and we're not allowed to build it up. So I kind of understand. They kind of threw it at us,
yeah,
but
yeah. And then we have Kempfer, which was Gabriel Byrne, and
which is
Warren.
amazing. I love him. He is so I love him as an actor, and he doesn't get enough to do in this movie,
Yeah,
but he pulls it off really well, I think.
yeah. And then Warman, I don't even want to say that actor's name.
But he's the guy from like Das Boot,
Yeah,
and he was in Beer Fest with Broken Lizard. If you guys like Super Troopers, he's one of the original beer people from that they have to go up against.
yeah. It was really great how they separated the soldiers with the uniforms, the gray and the black. The
You
Eitzen
know,
commandos, I think is what
yeah.
the Nazi soldiers were. And
Well, they were
then
the SS, so they're the
yeah,
SS division of the army, and these other guys are just normal German soldiers.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
But
the
again,
guys in the Nazi black and the SS uniforms, they come across as very sinister. Like you said, it's a good way for us visually to understand that there's even within the evil of the Nazis, there's this two levels. There's
yeah,
the super evil, and there's the guys that we almost can feel bad for because maybe I mean, of course, they have a choice, but they're in this situation where maybe they don't feel they do.
yeah, yeah. I just wish they would again. Werman didn't really match what I read in the book because in the book he was a bigger guy. He was a little out of shape because he kept eating the sausages because he was bored or whatever or stressed rather. Um, so I would have liked an older, slightly older person, but I get it. Whatever. It wasn't like he was bad at the part. I would have liked them to have incorporated the painting because that was a big part
Yeah,
of Warman's character. Is is he like to paint?
mhm.
So
I think that this is the unfortunate thing of a movie because
yeah.
both of these characters they stripped away the things that made them people.
Hmm.
We don't get the weakness and the cowardice of
Hmm.
Kempfer. We don't get the indecision he had, the constant second guessing himself, the um, the overplaying of the being in charge of the SS. You don't get any of that. You just get a pure SS a hole. And then the
Yeah.
other guy, we don't have the vulnerability and the doubt he has and the disgust he has at what his country's doing
Yep.
at some of the stuff and you don't have that dynamic where he actually has the upper hand on Kemper because he doesn't have there's no mention of World War I with these
Right.
two. They don't know each other. So you
Yeah.
don't have the other guy knowing that in real life Kemper's a coward and he's
Hmm.
hiding himself behind the
Yeah.
SS uniform. So you
Yeah.
do lose a little bit there, but you're right. The painting, if they would, then they would have had to incorporate that death, and I feel like they had already
Yeah.
signed on to how they wanted to do it. But I
Yeah.
thought, um, I thought both actors did really well for what they were
Hmm.
given. They just weren't given a lot to do.
Yeah. And they definitely played the, I'll say, good cop, bad cop. Um,
Yeah,
because Werman was like, "Hey, I'm trying to help you out here," and at the very beginning when Camphor gets there, he automatically kills some villagers, which I don't remember
yeah.
that in the book. I know he like
No, he
brought the
did. He
villagers.
rounded them up.
Yeah, he rounded them up and brought them into the keep, but nobody was killed. I don't remember.
Right,
Um,
because then so the guards were killed, and they had the message, and then they said that they needed to get. Yeah, I think they convinced him to let him go, so that
yeah,
they
yeah,
thought it would save the other people. But yeah, no, in this one they decide, hey, we're just going to make him pure evil. He shows up, he kills him immediately, and then
yeah,
that's how they deal with everything. The SS, by
yeah,
force. There is
yeah,
no,
and
there's no negotiating.
yeah, and you mentioned the message that was written on the wall. That was even different in the movie because in the book it says "Get out of my house," and in the movie it says "I will be free." So I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning would have been behind changing the message on the wall. I think it's more ominous for the message to be "Get out of my house."
Yeah, yeah, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. And then we have Glenn Glaken, um, and like you said, his eyes, you can see his eyes were like this violet color. Um, so he was kind of like, um, otherworldly when he's described in the book as just like a red, normal man with scars, you know, and
And the way he talked, the way he interacted with other people, everything about him was just off. And I guess
mm,
that's what they were going for, but it doesn't make sense when you add all the pieces together. But he
yeah,
definitely comes across as a golem. If I was going to think of something, I mean, other than that he was talking, but I was
yeah,
like, that would make more sense if they would have leaned into that.
yeah. And the whole part where number one, they put him on a horse, I mean, a motorcycle instead of a horse, which I get it. It's probably hard to, you know, do animals in a movie. Um, but I'm pretty sure he kills the two guards in the book or the two
Yeah.
sentries, whatever you want to call them. But in the movie, he kind of like mind controls them with his glowing eyes.
Yeah, which then adds us to another whole aspect that we don't, that he's not supposed to have, or we didn't think he had, you know.
Yeah,
So I mean, I guess that, and that's their director or whoever was in charge of the final cut to try and tell us that this guy's supernatural. He's got some sort of, but they don't even explain why he exists. And if he's really a supernatural being, why would he be so far away from the keep if that's his whole job? You would
yeah,
think he would be at the keep.
yeah.
So
I liked the part where they had him waking up when Molasar got free. I really liked
yeah,
that part.
and that
Um,
kind of could connected it, so we
yeah,
knew that they were connected in a way. So that kind of, yeah, you're right. That was an interesting way of doing it.
yeah. Um, One thing I noticed that I don't recall ever registering before was there was that one scene. I think it was like right when him and Ava met in the room, and you can see her in the mirror, but you can't see him. So I thought
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
pretty cool. I was
yeah.
like, oh, okay.
And then they like the next time they show the wall, they show the mirror gone.
Yeah,
So I mean, so he has some, and so that's from the book, and that was interesting. They could have leaned into that a little more, but again, we get a lot of nothing explained. I
yeah,
could imagine. Can you imagine not reading the book and then in the '80s going to see this? And I wonder if it would be more confusing or less confusing
yeah. I
because
don't
there's a
know.
lot of things they don't explain. And I mean, we've seen it before, and maybe that's why I didn't like it as much. Um, and it's not a movie that I've revisited often. Um,
It was the
because I
music.
didn't understand. Oh
You
boy,
didn't
that
like the
music
music.
drives me crazy. As soon as it started, I thought, "What is this?" So, but now that we've read the book, at least you can connect the dots in your head. So,
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. I don't know. I just what is this actor's name? I forget.
isn't
He's
it
very
something Glenn? Isn't it Scott Glenn? Or
Scott Glenn. Yeah. I don't recall.
every
I
time I
know.
see him, all I can think of is Daredevil because he's the guy that teaches. He's Stick in the Daredevil miniseries that was on Netflix.
Yeah,
But he's
yeah,
in a Backdraft. He's been in a lot of good stuff. He's a good actor.
yeah, yeah. I think he kind of could have. I don't know. I don't think
I
this
don't
was
think he was
his
good in
best work.
this. No, yeah,
Yeah,
this he mails
yeah,
it in. But I don't know if he mails it in or if it's the material so weird because, like I said, the whole everything he does feels so inhuman. It's like
hmm
that was his direction, and maybe this is the best he could do. But no, he's really good in Backdraft. He's really good in. He's great in Stick, just as the blind mentor of Daredevil. So I wish I could think of some other stuff. I know he's been in some war movies, and he's been in a ton of stuff though. So. But
yeah,
maybe I wonder if this is his first movie.
maybe.
Maybe that's why he's just sometimes that happens. The early ones they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like again. I know you're working with actors and you're auditioning people, and maybe the director had a list of people in his mind who he wanted to play these characters, but the character had red hair. That was like his call sign, his signature. He's
Yeah,
the man with the red hair.
which would make him stand out in
Yeah,
Romania in that specific section, I think. So there was a
exactly.
reason that he was like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
this
like
guy
there's
looks like he could have grown up in the village itself, and nobody would bat an eye. So
right, right.
yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the casting is a little off. So,
Yeah. Then we have the monster. I mean, it's a cool monster.
it is a cool monster. I do
Yeah,
think, and I love the special effects they were able to use with him. I mean, the
yeah,
eyes and stuff. I thought a lot of the stuff they did was cool, but I never would think vampire with this thing. Although I do like how they represented him not taking blood, but taking their energy, their essence, or
yeah,
whatever, pulling it out of them and absorbing it that way. I do
yeah,
like that. I thought that was a very well done, especially for the '80s. We're not
yeah,
they're not sophisticated with the special effects, so we don't have computers that can do it. But I thought
yeah,
uh, I thought they handled that really well. But he
yeah.
should just be a dude.
Yeah, yeah. I do like the way they evolved him though. And you
Yeah,
mentioned the smoke or the fog at the beginning when he helped Ava and brought her to the father. Um, I think that was their way of showing how he gained power because he
yeah,
started off he was just this fog and then he had like the skeleton like hand and then he was fully powerful and he had his true form. um I don't know about you, but that kind of reminds me of oh, what's that,
Swamp Thing.
Apocalypse.
Oh,
No, X-Men Apocalypse.
oh
uh
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what's the
Apocalypse.
what's who is the bad guy in that movie? But he's got that same like neck connected to his head thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm pretty
And
sure it's
Swamp
Apocalypse.
Thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he does look like something in the chest.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
I would have liked to have seen the whole rat, him controlling the rats, um,
Yeah, that would have been cool. The rats, and then
the zombies.
they could have done. There's a lot of different things. Yeah, I mean, well, you get to that point, and then I understand why they didn't, because that would have been a lot of, yeah. Apocalypse
Yeah,
is the character.
yeah. And they
I
could
don't
have
know
done the
why.
rats thing because, in Ben they had Swarm of Rats, and I think Ben was made in the 80s.
Yeah, no, I think
So
it was '70s.
oh really? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
they
Late
they could have
'70s.
totally did the whole rat thing.
Yeah, I would have
Um,
added to some of the scariness of the thing, and then
hmm
maybe have one of the deaths be the rats killing somebody, and then
yeah,
you'd be, then you could see how they tied it all together. But
yeah.
but then again, who knows budget wise? Who knows how much rats cost? So
True. A rat person trainer,
yeah,
Pied Piper. But yeah, it's a cool
what's
monster. It's
sad? I was gonna say what's sad is that this actually looks better than the makeup they gave Apocalypse in the Marvel movie. This
yeah.
actually looks more representative of what he looks like in the comic.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah.
Well, they
I mean, the
must have.
color scheme's a little different, but the shape and everything, the neck, and a lot of people hated the way that they made him look in the movie. But I feel like this would be a better representation. They could have done a little bit off of this, and they would have got it closer.
Yeah, yeah. But that's why. And when I was saying before, when I thought he looked like stone, it's all because of it. He's black, and then you got the red, so it basically gives like that lava crust when you
Hmm.
have the crust on top of the lava, and you can see the red um veining through
The
it. I guess you'd say it.
Yeah, the other thing I didn't like is when they made the crosses glow,
Yeah.
because that didn't make any sense either. But
Yeah. But it did make sense when Kuza was bringing the hilt out of the keep
yeah,
because in the book it said that as he walked by them they would glow and then fade. So that was kind of cool. I
yeah,
like that scene.
yeah, that makes sense. But just to glow to pull the Nazis to come start pulling on it. I don't remember him glowing in the book originally. I thought he just
No.
saw it
Yeah.
in the light and then
Yeah.
started digging at it. So
Yeah. Another thing that I did mention too is the first Nazi that gets killed, I thought was kind of cool because in the book he just gets his head off, but in the movie he's like missing like half his torso. He's just
yeah,
like
yeah,
from like the chest down, or the waist down. So that was kind of cool. That was like the goriest thing, I think.
that was, I think, the gore. And then it also doesn't make sense then later when the guy's head explodes and there's no gore.
Yeah.
So um,
Maybe he was just so hungry he couldn't control himself and the whole top of the body exploded.
yeah, and that makes more sense, and that kind of ties in with the cloud thing and him gaining strength. And but I thought I wish that would have been a good time to have the rats. Would have been
Yeah,
with that opening sequence.
yeah. And then, of course, in the book, the rats attack Theodore at the end, and they like chew him up, and that's pretty much how he dies in the book.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, at the end of the movie, he's walking, even though he's like, I don't know if you noticed that, like at the end where they freeze on Ava,
Mhm.
you can see two people in helping the father, and he's fully standing up, even though he's supposedly back to his crippled state.
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, they should have been like, carrying him because he can't walk,
yeah.
you know. But
Maybe it'll build up.
yeah. So then we have Alexandru, who's the caretaker of the keep with his sons. Um, is it me or did it come off as he was blind in the
Oh,
movie?
I was going to ask you the same thing. The whole time I kept thinking, is this guy staring at something off camera? Because he just does not following any eye lines or anything. He did feel blind, so I thought that
Yeah,
was interesting. That was an interesting way to play it, but it was obvious. It popped out like that.
yeah.
So I
I'm
think
like,
that's
oh,
great that we both had the same thought.
yeah. I was like, okay, is he supposed to be blind? What's going on here? Because it definitely wasn't blind in the book. Um, and then Father Finescu,
They didn't
um,
have a picture of him in character. I mean, in the movie, the hair and beard's all black, but
yeah,
he looks exactly the same. So I thought, well,
yeah,
I'll just use the card from IMDb. But I
yeah,
thought he was an interesting character. I like the way that he was able to bridge all the stuff that we would have got through the book through different, you know, um, because we can't look inside the characters' heads during the movie. So he kind of bridges everything and gives us a good um, arc to tie everything together with this character that he has, I guess, a little bit, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have much to do with anything.
yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed the dynamic between Kuza and Father Finescu, how they had different religions, but they were still friends.
Mhm.
And I don't want to say associates, but they, comrades or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
even though they clearly had
I think
different
yeah,
religions.
I think the first word you said, friends, is the best way. I mean, they had a genuine affection for each other, like a friend would.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
So,
Kristen's going at it to get up.
yeah, so it was great to see him because I don't remember him having that much of a role in the book.
I was gonna say, I
Like,
don't even remember there being a priest in the book. It was the
yeah, maybe
innkeeper was the
that's
one that sold them out, and in the movie, the father's the one that tells the Nazis
yeah,
about
yeah, you're right. Maybe there wasn't a priest in the book. Huh.
it. Shit to hair.
So they just had a brand new character they just added.
Yeah, because the innkeeper's there for like what 3 seconds to tell Glenn that the lady's got the room, and
Yeah,
then he leaves and doesn't
yeah.
do anything else.
Yeah,
So
you
I don't
see
know.
him right at the beginning when the Nazis are coming in. He's got no lines, no nothing, but he comes out of the inn and then um bringing Glenn into the room, which that was kind of weird. And that the guy who played I don't even want to say that character's name because I can't because it's like I's and U's. Um, he, the actor they got to portray that character was kind of weird, like kind of creepy. I don't know who it
Yeah.
was. So I'm like, oh, he reminded me of the rat guy in Harry Potter. Do you know who I'm talking
Oh
about?
yeah. 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 I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was
So
that guy's name? Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, and I think you're right. You're dead on with that.
yeah, so that's exactly who I thought of, and I'm like, it can't be true because this was filmed in 1983, and it can't be that same person. But it looked totally like him.
Maybe it's
Um,
his dad.
well, maybe. Um, yeah, I would have liked Alexandria to have more of a part. Um, because they're at the beginning, Worman was like, okay, you can resume your caretaking once we get settled. Um, they did have the part where the Oster was pulling out the cross, trying to pull out the cross, and Alexandria was like, "Don't touch the crosses! Don't touch the crosses!" Um,
Yeah, but then after that, we didn't really see much of Forlum, did we? Maybe one
nope,
other time.
Yeah. And another thing that I caught off guard, and I don't know the exact number, but in the movie they said something like 100 and something crosses, but in the book it was like 1,000 or 18. I forget the number, but it was a huge number of
Yeah.
crosses that were in the keep. Um, when he said the number in the movie, I was like, wow, that's very low. Like there are supposed to be like crosses just everywhere in the keep.
Yeah. And again, I guess we just have to look at budget probably for them
Yeah.
to have to deal with that.
I mean, but it was
But
just
yeah, it,
words,
it takes away from the scope
importance
of
of
yeah.
of the image or the item, the crosses. So even though we know that they were kind of like a fake thing, not fake, but they were kind of just like a warning, I guess, because the only ones that really had any significance was the one where it was where Radu Mozart was actually in prison, like in
Mhm.
behind there. So, but yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, it was a great movie for the time. I mean, I
Yeah, it was
wouldn't.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
There
You
were a
know,
lot
I'm
of
not.
things I wish you know what I'd love to see. I'd love to see it redone today
Yeah,
with with the special effects that they can pull off now, and then maybe some of the different choices. Maybe we get a man. You know what? No, I don't want to see it as a movie. I think it would make a really good miniseries, or
oh yeah.
like a Netflix 5 episodes, or
Well, looks like we lost Eric.
And I was thinking that just so everybody knows, so now it's going to look weird because now it's going to have a different background. So my laptop died in the middle of what I was my point I was making. So to jump back into it, what I was saying was I think that a mini series would be the best way to handle this subject because then we could really get in depth with the characters and you could really start seeing everybody, and you could go to the World War I relationship between the two Nazi guys, and you could show her playing the music and dealing with the gypsies and all that stuff. I think it would be really cool to do it that way.
Yeah, and you
I would
could get
love.
the Glenn's
Hmm.
journey to the keep.
Oh, that would be so much better. And maybe even an episode of history where we actually see them earlier fighting or doing whatever, because they kind of discuss it at the end of the book. Maybe we get a whole episode where it shows how he got put in the keep
Yeah.
and had trapped and all that stuff. That would be really interesting. That would be
Yeah,
a
that would
fun
be
way.
cool because
And
that
then,
he says in the book about Mulasar being responsible for the bubonic plague, Black Plague.
right, there's so many
That would have
things they
been
could
so
do.
cool.
And we haven't read the other two. There may be even more information in those books that would be incorporated into a miniseries that would make it that much better. So,
Yeah.
one of those 8 episode things that you get on Netflix, and maybe it's only a season, but if it does really well, then they expand it and they do more things with it and stuff. That would be really fun. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who
Yeah.
makes those decisions, who goes up and decides to do that. And that guy may have been so burned by the keep, he never wants anything done.
Yeah.
But I think if you sold it to him as a mini series, I think you could get his attention.
Yeah. Maybe I'll email F. Paul Wilson on his website. I'll be like, we think
Yeah.
this needs to be a mini series because you
Oh.
could end it with the end of the book
Mhm.
and it would leave it open to maybe there's going to be a second season, maybe there's not,
And maybe
you know?
each book is its own season or whatever, and then you get
Yeah.
more out of it. So, but no, I in that aspect, that would be awesome. The movie
Mm,
itself is it's fine. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. The problems I have with it have more to do with probably people's behind the scenes making decisions that didn't make sense. But overall, um, it stays true to the book for
yep.
the as it can.
Yep.
The monster, they didn't, even though it's different, and I think it could have been just a person. I mean, it's
Mm,
still a cool looking dude. So, I mean, that aspect's still good.
yeah.
So, I mean, this isn't like trying to think of something that,
Howling 3.
yeah, it's not like any of the weird things where they kind of go crazy with them. Yeah, I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed the Shining miniseries. If that,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
I mean,
For
everything
sure.
I have a complaint with this movie is nitpicking. I always love to see actors that I'm a big fan of now or that I've grown up with. I love to see their early stuff. It's fun to do that. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of the director, and like I said, once I get the Blu-ray, I'm going to watch all the special features and see if they talk about why things were done the way they were done. Although you said he's boycotting the thing, he may have boycotted doing any of the special feature stuff. That'd be interesting to see too. So
Yeah. I'm interested to see if F. Paul Wilson has any little snippets in the special features.
yeah, if they do, I'll let you know. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I
for
get it
sure.
before Scares. I'll bring it if it's got anything cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that's our take on the movie The Keep. It's worth a watch, especially if you've read the book. I mean, it's worth a watch even if you haven't read the book. I mean, it's a good scary movie, you
Yeah,
know.
it's if you like 80s horror, it's definitely fits in there fine. It's not traditional like vampire like you would think with anything. It's the probably the most untraditional vampire movie we watched.
Yeah.
Um, and you can see it for free if you got the Pluto TV app. You just look it up and you can go watch it there. And so, I mean, it's not like it's coming out of anything. And you were I wasn't bombarded with a bunch of preview or commercials. Were you when you watched it?
I actually got it on Amazon.
Well, there you go for 3.99 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so then
rented
you
it
don't have
on
to worry.
Amazon Video. Yeah. So, but yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to check it out, no, like Eric said, you can watch it on Pluto or you can rent it on Amazon Prime videos. And if you've seen the movie, tell us in the comments what you think about it. Were we off the mark or were we on the mark? All right. Well, thank you for joining and we'll see you on the next episode.
Take it easy.